Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Alterminds podcast. Today, we're addressing a critical issue in the school system, which recently came up because of a protest that happened. So, it's students vaping.
Series of protests, actually, I think it was.
Also, we're animals today.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
we should address that. We decided to decorate ourselves as animals.
Yeah, I can fully own this one in terms of I am very low bandwidth. There's
Hmm.
been a pile of advocacy and other types of meetings and things like that that have just put my energy level at zero. And to be honest, I thought it would be a whole, and also given the topic of today as well too, I just thought it would be a little bit more of a lightener, um, to have these really serious discussions and stuff like that, in the frame of uh, family-friendly animals.
Yeah. So I'm a cow and you are what are you, a fox?
To me, it looks like a husky, but I'm legally blind, so my version of vision is not everybody else's.
No,
Some people have called it a fox. I don't know.
it could be a husky. It could be a
Yeah.
husky.
That's what I'm going with because I have an affinity for huskies. So here we are.
So we want to address this the issue of vaping in schools. We want to address it from a neurodivergent perspective. So that's where we're coming from today, in the assumption that some of these kids that are vaping are neurodivergent, and a lot of neurodivergent people are at higher risk for addiction.
Yeah. And most of the rules that have been in play up to this point in time about how situations are handled from the administrative level, from the parental level, what kids are allowed to say and do, and how they're allowed to talk and things like that, typically come from a very different perspective than neurodivergent. There's systems are glacial to change. They don't like the word change. So I learned in another meeting I was in, I learned the word shift instead of change because it's probably a better, more responsive and accurate word for what it is that needs to happen. So that's to me, that's where I like to come from it. But that's the thing, right? As we've had discussions about on the podcast, we do things differently. Neurodivergent people, we do things differently. And in that, actions need to match appropriately. So going to the first question that we have here, Kate, what do you think about the problem of kids vaping in bathrooms?
Mm. So this has been a thing for every generation, because before vaping we had cigarettes and people used to
Yeah,
smoke cigarettes in bathrooms. So it's not like it's a new problem.
right.
It's as a tale as that I'm trying to say a saying and I don't remember what the saying. A tale as old as time. Is that a saying?
Yes, that's the appropriate one. Yeah. And I mean, I agree. I don't think that it's the vaping or cigarettes in particular. I think it's, every generation has its thing, whatever the heck it is, and the response is more actually important, I would think, than the problem.
Yeah. So for me, it would be about getting kids a safe place to vape and smoke, because I'm all about kids having the right to choose for themselves what they do. They are humans, so trying to control their behavior just makes things 10 times worse.
So why would somebody, given all of the healthcare information and everything like that that's out there, why would somebody make a choice to vape to begin with? Why would a teenager do this? Like, what is it? Is it peer pressure? Is it the stimming factor? What are your thoughts on any of that?
For me, so I used to smoke and I also smoke weed. So for me, I have an addiction to substances. So like
Okay,
I use substances to alter my reality.
fair enough.
Yeah, so and I always have since experimented with drugs at a teenage age, a normal age that people usually start experimenting.
Yeah,
And I've never felt bad about it, and I've never felt like it was wrong. I think
no.
it's something that people naturally try to experiment with.
Oh yeah,
But for me, the smoking was definitely stimming and
yeah.
being able to take a break. So smokers get breaks. So that was another big thing is that when I was at work and stuff, I'd be able to go for a smoke break because I smoke.
That's fair. I tried smoking a couple of times. My first time when I was 13, and that was peer pressure. But at the same time, I was trying to fit in. I knew I was getting bullied left, right, and center from every direction. And this is the only thing I figured I could possibly do where I might fit in and suddenly be, amongst the cool kids. And of
Hmm.
course, I did nothing but choke, so that wasn't going to work either. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, and I had an experience. I was working in Quebec, first few months of working in the lab, and they gave me some really heavy painkillers due to an injury that I experienced in the lab. And turns out that painkiller was a narcotic, and I was flying apparently. I didn't realize, like, not literally, but this one of the secretaries kind of came around the corner when I was working at my desk, and she noticed that things were not okay. And she's like, "Hey, are you okay? Are you flying?" And I was like, I don't know. I really don't know, but I don't feel right and I don't feel good. So she went and got me some orange juice and water and brought me outside and everything like that. So I mean, I it was very heavy narcotic for pain, and I guess it did what it was supposed to, but I never took one of those painkiller pills after. I just dumped it all down the toilet, which was also bad, as it turns out, because
Poor
water leads to
fish.
the ocean, and yeah,
Yeah.
really not cool. I didn't realize that at the time. I was just 19 and didn't want any more part of the bad thing. That was
Mm.
bad for me. So yeah, but I don't experience getting hooked on anything. Like I can't even take my diabetic medication knowing that it's a life-saving thing. I lack the ability to connect to, latch on to anything. So I don't know. We come at it from both ends. My husband's the same way as you. He can't. He gets addicted to things, and it happens really easily for him. So neurodivergence as a whole, we experience things differently, and neither one of them, it's different applications depending on how you operate, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to escape from reality. Reality for me was always really hard to deal with and hard to, yeah, overcome.
Yeah.
Basic tasks always made me feel bored, especially because of the ADHD. I think people ADHD are probably at a high risk for addiction because of the stimulating factor, right? We want something to stimulate us.
Yeah. And this is not something that's going anywhere anytime soon, given that it's a generational issue, right? So what what are people supposed to do? Like, how can the school administration handle the issue then?
They need to get the students involved in the decision making there. I feel like adults treat, especially teenagers. Teenagers are almost adults. They're young adults.
Oh yeah.
They need to be treated with some sort of respect and dignity too. So they need to be asked like, what is it that you all need? Because you're vaping for a reason.
Yeah.
And and the truth is they're getting physiologically addicted to it because it has nicotine in it, right? So there's no you cannot smoke nicotine over and over again and not become physiologically addicted to it. Your body will become addicted to it.
Yeah.
So
Fair enough.
they're in a losing battle by doing that, obviously, because there's no way you're going to continue to do it as a habit and not form some sort of addiction to it. Um, and the physical act of inhaling, I find that to be quite calming.
And that's fair. So given, yeah, that it's not going to go anywhere, these are like um and I know a lot of neurodivergent people, the second that you tell them that they can't do something, that'll
Oh yeah,
actually send them the other direction,
yeah.
right?
So
So,
I don't think there's any point to try to control kids or people, to try to control them from like to tell them not to do something. I think that that is just going to have the opposite effect.
yeah, I think it's more constructive and probably more beneficial if you talk about why something has happened and,
Hmm.
because, health from a health perspective, it's not beneficial, right? Um, but for your mental health, it might well be. If that's the
Yeah,
thing that helps you be regulated,
cannabis
right?
for me. So I use cannabis regularly, and for me, it's harm reduction. So because I have suicide ideation, right?
Right.
So for me, it's harm reduction. I cannot give up cannabis because if I did, it would cause me to be more suicidal.
Right. So obviously that's not the way you want to go.
No.
Yeah, that's we're looking for, the dopamine effect, right? Anything that actually, helps you. I don't want to take a negative stance on it. I feel that it's perceived as a negative thing, right? But it's all very individualistic. Like what you need is not what I need, and what I need is
Hmm.
not what you need, right? So I mean, given that there's such a varied thing, and the school seems to want to take a cookie cutter approach to it.
Yeah, they don't seem to want to actually work with the kids at all, if I'm being honest with you, because again, like addressing,
Fair.
so for reference, the protest was because teachers are checking on kids in the bathroom, and because kids are vaping in there, and the teachers, I mean, they're not just vaping in there. I have teacher friends, so at one school the kids were pissing in the heaters and in the
Oh
soap
my.
dispensers. Yeah, and in the soap
Wow.
dispensers. So teachers have to be in there because they're doing inappropriate things in the bathroom, and smoking in the bathroom is disgusting. As someone who smokes cannabis, I would never smoke inside a house or inside a building because I don't want everyone to be exposed,
Right. But
right?
again, that's for a lot of smokers, their opinion is that, hey, if I go underneath the fan in the bathroom, then it's fine.
No, it's not fine. But
Yeah.
that's where education needs to come in too. I think people
Yes.
really need to be educated in etiquette, smoking
Yeah.
etiquette.
Yeah. Well, I think if we were more open about, the fact that this is a realistic thing for most people, a relatable thing. If we were actually, instead of being the waggy naggy finger about stuff,
Hmm.
if we were actually having like one-to-one conversation about the realities of all this stuff, I feel like it might be a little bit more beneficial and probably, you know, more working solutions about, how to work.
Open communication, and then to
Thank you.
have
Yeah.
support services. So, you need counselors that are trained to help addiction and sensory needs. So
Yep.
the counselors need to be understanding of neurodivergent issues because a lot of these kids that are smoking and vaping are neurodivergent. It's the reason why they are smoking and vaping. They're bored.
Yeah. So if you could tell a school administrator something like right now, what would you tell them to do about today?
Uh, okay, so my solution would be to
Yeah.
make smoking huts for the kids. They need huts where they can go in and smoke.
Close to
That's
the school or like where would you put them?
close enough that they can walk there and still be supervised because they can't leave school property, right? So that needs to be, and then this is where public health this is where it kind of irritates me a little bit because we want to talk about addiction, or people think that they want to talk about addiction, but they don't want to make actual progress towards harm reduction, which
Right.
is giving people safe places to use substances.
Yeah. I wouldn't put that hut at the front door though, because then other people still have to walk through that if they're a
Yeah.
person who like me, I have a smoke allergy, right? So I mean I can't be around anybody who is smoking. Like if I know that I'm gonna go hang out with a friend who is a smoker, like I will dose the daylights out of myself with like antihistamines and hope for the best because I love my friend. But that's not always a workable solution, right? I mean, if you're a person who's going to school and isn't able to prepare to that level, you're just a kid going to school, and perceptually, you don't want to be at harm. Like nobody thinks that if you're going to school, you're going to be harmed, right? Like you're supposed to be safe at school. But if you're walking through like a wall of smoke, that's going to be seen as harm on some levels, right? So how far away roughly would you recommend?
I guess it depends on the location of the school and how much room they have, but I would say 30 feet.
Okay, all right. Because you also have to consider that some people who may choose to vape are also people who can't travel long distances. So there's that as well too. So I think it does have to play in a level of accessibility in there as well. Yeah.
But I mean, they're not going to do this anyway. They're not going to build smoking places for kids because God forbid, they actually deal with any taboo issues like kids having sex and kids smoking, right? These are things that nobody wants to deal with. Nobody wants to actually talk about openly. So how can the kids actually get anything useful for themselves? How can we ever find solutions to these
Yeah.
problems when we don't actually have a judge-free zone? We don't have a judgment-free zone for these kids to be able to talk about what they need and get what they need.
So perhaps starting with education as opposed to the huts might be the big
Well,
thing.
I don't think the kids are going to care that it's dangerous. I don't think they're going to care because kids, their brains are not developed enough to understand consequence yet. So I don't think there's any point to tell them that it's going to lead to cancer or going to lead to XYZ because it's not a deterrent for them. It wasn't a deterrent for me. You could have told me about Odine. You could have told me about, well, they did. Police officers would come into the schools and they would tell us about cocaine and heroin and blah, 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 blah. And I never, ever once cared. I never ever
Yeah.
once thought to myself, "Oh, I shouldn't be doing this because it's bad for my health."
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I mean, I look at the way that I process information and I consider myself a slow processor. So, I mean, people tell me things, but it takes sometimes weeks and months for the concept to actually click, right? Just because I don't see myself in that example. So, yeah, I can see where that would come into play. So, what are the parents supposed to do? Because, I mean, the parents want to support their kid, but they have to do what the school administration tells them to. Like, is there anything that parents can do, really?
Well, for me, I'd be telling my kid to go to take their smoke breaks and take them far enough away from the school that they're not in anyone's way, right? So that would, like, if my kid was a smoker,
Yeah.
vapor, smoker, whichever, or both, I would be telling them, hey, you can only go out at recess and lunchtime. Those are your two smoke breaks, and you have to do it far enough away from the school that nobody smells it.
Okay. So it's been a long time since I was in school.
Hmm.
Are there still punishments in place in the schools for kids who actually do, like, go out and go have a smoke?
I don't know. I hope not. I think it's their like they have the right to. It's their body. They have the right to go and smoke if they want to smoke.
Yeah. I don't know. We used to get in trouble. Like that was the big thing, right? Like kids had to go on the pip or play hooky or whatever you want to call it if they wanted to go out and go have a smoke because it tended to be during like class when and somebody some teacher or some kid would say something and you'd see the person who is about to embark upon their smoke journey they get visibly frustrated about something. So I know now that smoking is a response to something, right? Whether it's and it's used as a stimulant, also like a stim, like like I'm fidgeting right now. You can't see, but I'm fidgeting with like a little bubble popper. Um, but that's my response to this really long, super long week, right? So I mean, I'm assuming that smoking for some will be along the same lines. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
come Friday, a kid gets really tired because they've been in school all bloody week.
there needs
They're
to
probably going to go
be
for more smokes.
there needs to be more understanding too of kids' stress. People don't think that kids even get stressed out.
Yeah, that's huge misconception.
Yeah, they don't respect kids' stress. They think that what do you
Ugh,
got to be stressed about? You're just a kid.
yeah.
But kids experience high levels of stress, especially in teenagehood.
Yeah, so that's a big dichotomy, given that the schools don't seem to have that lens to view, and parents trying to support their kids the best way they possibly can, but that's not still not always going to jive with the kids' viewpoint. So where's the middle ground? Like, what would you like to see parents do about school issues, I guess?
Oh, I would like them to be a bit more organized with, like, even with this protest about the kids, the bathrooms or whatever.
That was awful to witness in the news. It really was.
Yeah, they just kind of like showed up to the school, which you're not supposed to do because it's dangerous, right? You're not supposed to just show up to your kid's school unannounced and they tried to get into the school, I think, because they were all in the entryway.
Oh
That's a
wow.
fire. Yeah, that's a fire hazard. So it wasn't very organized. You actually need evidence that people are against certain policies. So you need like perhaps a petition to start off with.
Okay.
and you have to know what you actually want changed. So, so say if I was about to start a petition for vaping in schools or dealing with the vaping issue in schools, I would have to figure out what solutions are actually available to us. Because
Right, because
I would have
the
to give the
system isn't
school
always very well responsive either, right?
no, and you have to give the system actual solutions, or they're not going to do anything. You cannot expect to go in there guns a blazing and somehow get anything done, because that's not how people communicate. You don't communicate in aggressive. I mean, technically, when you're in an aggressive state, you're not in a place to understand anything.
Yeah. Yeah, your brain is busy doing the hamster wheel on whatever it is that you're stuck on, and being able to navigate out of that is tangly. Sometimes you need outside assistance. I know I do. So I usually need somebody to come and tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Ange, over here," you
Yeah,
know, and that can be hard because not everybody wants to. Seeing a person in an aggressive state like that, most people tend to stand off. They don't want any
yeah.
part of that, right?
And they
So.
were they were endangering the staff and the students by showing up there, right? At the end of
And
the
they didn't
day.
recognize that they were doing that either, did they?
No, that's stressful to the staff and the students. Because I would have been stressed if I was a teacher that day and they showed up and a
Yeah.
bunch of people showed up to the entry and started yelling at me and like cussing, doing cuss words and getting all uppity about stuff. It would be a lot.
Yeah. Fair enough. So there's a question that comes to mind that's not on the list, but I
Mhm.
think it's a good fit in here. If you're a teacher and you do not agree with current administration policy, you agree with the parent and the kid. What do you do?
Oh, you probably can't do much, actually.
And that's so like a lot of parents, they tend to put the blame on the teachers, hey?
Yeah, but the teachers don't really have much control. I mean, I'm not trying to call out any organization in particular, but
No.
The NLTA is not very helpful when it comes to teachers with dissatisfaction.
Yeah, fair enough. So I mean, it's almost like everybody's coming at it from different angles and just really struggling to know who owns what and
And
how.
I don't think any of
I
them
feel like
have
it.
I don't think any of them have the kid's best interest at heart, because I think the parents are upset because someone's telling their kid what to do
Yeah.
and someone's making their kid, uncomfortable or whatever. So they're upset about
Yeah.
that. And then the teachers might be upset because they're getting attacked from the parents and the students, and then the administration's upset because all of this disorganization and chaos, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. So your own kid, say
Mm,
your own kid, you find out that your own kid is vaping. What do you
yeah.
do?
Oh, I'd be so disappointed. I'd be so disappointed because I would understand it, because I'd be like, yeah, I know it's the cool thing to do. It's the laid back, oh, you don't care, you don't give a fuck type of
Yeah.
habit to form. Um, so initially I'd be disappointed and I'd probably tell him that. I'd probably tell him, I would rather you use cannabis. I would rather you be using cannabis than using
And that's
nicotine.
all personal preference from your own experience, of course.
Oh yeah, that's my own
Yeah.
experience. But it's also having some knowledge of physiological addiction and the different, and like, you can become physiologically addicted to cannabis. I would say that I am physiologically addicted because I
Yeah.
use it so much, right?
And
But
that knowledge goes back to your training as a neuropsychologist. Is that what I
well,
forget?
neuro
Like
I
the term?
study I I
Study my
study
study my brain.
I study neuropsych. I'm not a neuropsychologist though, because
Okay, all
I would
right,
have had
yeah.
to do my master's and my PhD, and that was too much work.
Okay, so it was neuroscience. Sorry, like I said,
It's still
no.
neuropsychology.
Okay, all right, but you didn't go the whole clinical route. Fair enough.
No, no, because
Yeah,
I couldn't get a GPA high enough to get me into any programs.
but that might have come down to supports and stuff like that. Like, I mean,
Oh,
I
it
didn't get the
definitely
supports I
did.
needed in school.
It definitely did. I failed calculus like 3 times because no one would help me with my calculus.
Fair enough.
I had a teacher I couldn't understand, and then they would constantly tell me to go to the math center, and I'd go to the math center and do all right. But then when I got to the test, I'd still fail it. So,
Yeah, and how many times did that send you outside for a smoke? All that stress.
oh, I wasn't smoking then.
or a toke,
A
cannabis
to
or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, I use cannabis daily. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Um,
the more stressed out you'd get, like the more often you'd have to go. Yeah.
we have 10 minutes, just so you know.
Okay. Nope, that's fine. Thanks for the time check. But I like that's to me like it's important to recognize lived experience for neurodivergent voices, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and recognize the really hard work that went in to, acquiring this knowledge. It's not just, we're here spetting out, whatever we feel like kind of thing because we're mad because somebody did
No,
something,
it comes from
you
lived
know.
experience for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and you come from an educated point, like you know how the brain does what it does and why.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
like the brain. I like learning about the brain.
yes, exactly. So, given all of that, how did the protest make you feel as a parent?
Disappointed. And kind of like
In who? In what?
and disappointed in the parents and the student, well, the parents specifically, because they're the adults in the room.
Yeah.
And they were kind of insinuating that the teachers were what would you call that? Like, I think it would be sexual assault. Teachers were spying on the kids in the bathrooms in a weird, creepy way, is what they were
Oh,
insinuating.
okay.
And
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 was that
that's
actually happening? Like, did they discover?
it could be happening.
Okay.
There's a possibility that a teacher here and there are creeps for sure. Like I'm not going to deny a student's experience. If they say a
No.
teacher spied on them, then I'm going to say, okay, let's figure out what to do from here because that's a serious accusation, right?
Yep.
But
And that's the
that's
thing. Like for me, I had to tune out a little bit. Like I was listening up to a certain point, and it's not one event that drove me away. I was just suffering from overload and like all of the things that are going on in our country and the world right now. I'm just like, oh my God, okay, I can't take one more thing. So, that got tuned out. Listening to what was going on with the protests and stuff went the sideways, the same as everything else did.
hmm.
So that's why I'm asking, like, was there something specific that was discovered that you're aware of?
I don't know if there was anything. I think it was just he said, she said, right? The students were
Okay,
saying
fair.
one thing and the teachers are saying another thing. But I know not all the teachers are creeps, so that's
Yeah,
just impossible. It's just
no, that,
statistically
yeah.
not likely. Um,
No, but I mean, we've got teachers who are in the news now for nefarious acts. So,
yeah,
it's an important
it
thing to
happens.
recognize it possible. Yeah.
It happens, but
Yeah.
mostly the teachers are going in there because students are doing stuff in the bathrooms that they shouldn't be doing,
Right.
and the thing is, privacy. You get that when you are behaving appropriately.
Yeah.
So if you're not behaving appropriately, like if you're pissing in the heaters and pissing in the soap dispensers, then you're not going to be
Probably
left
not
alone.
good.
Yeah, you're not going to be left alone in the bathroom because you're not
Yeah.
mature enough to be left alone in the bathroom. So that's something that's, for me, if I was a parent, I am a
Yeah.
parent. If my kid was vaping in the bathrooms, I would say, you get what you get, man. You're vaping in the bathrooms. You're going to get teachers going in and being creepy because they have no other choice because you're being inappropriate in the bathroom.
Yeah. And I mean, you get a lot of flack these days, I find. Parents get a lot of flack for being perceived as being too gentle. So their kid is just out causing chaos left, right, and center because they can. They're not going to get any kind of punishment at home,
But
So the teachers are,
that's not gentle to me. That's neglectful.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Like to me, that would be as well. But
they're confusing
uh,
gentle parenting with neglectful parenting. So if my kid is vaping and causing problems in school
yeah,
because of vaping, it's my responsibility and to take accountability for my kid's behavior and say, "Hey man, like you can vape all you want. You can vape till your lungs shrivel up into raisins if you want to, but you
because
can't do
that's your
it."
choice.
Yeah, but you can't do it in the bathroom.
Yeah,
It ain't that complicated.
yeah. So it's kind of like do what you do, but don't get caught, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I mean that goes to a lot of things in life. That wouldn't be just like strictly to just vaping or whatever. I've had my own experiences of where I cannot be open with the tools that I use to actually in my workspace. I use a lot of AI, but I can't be honest about it because not everybody is down with it. People are scared of AI, right? They run for the hills the second AI is mentioned. So I mean, I imagine it's the same thing for, people who just don't have skin in the game. They don't have a kid in school or whatever, so they're passing negative judgments and all these things. So I think parents are kind of like just swallowing all of that, and some of them are sick of it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what, so to make sure that the kids are heard and that the kids, their needs are being addressed and something, and all of that. Is there anything particular that you would like to say to the kids, to the community at large, or anything like that? Like, is there any really good one thing that we can
Well,
probably
we
do?
need a collaborative approach with the students, right? So the students need to be heard. It's that simple.
Yeah. So what do you recommend? Survey, what? How do we get
Um,
this information from the kids?
Surveys are good, but also just town halls. So like having meetings with the town hall meets with the kids to be like, what's going on? You guys are vaping in bathrooms. You got the teachers peeping on you in bathrooms because you're vaping. So like, what can we do to make this easier for you? You're gonna vape. We know that. We're not gonna be able to get
Yeah.
you to stop vaping. So what can we do? And the
Yeah.
students, I'm telling you, the students would probably have a bunch of ideas
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
they're the ones that are vaping.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I don't think that we give our kids enough credit
No.
for things. And I think that's probably a large part of the problem, right? Like that's where to me, that's where you start,
Yeah,
right? You go back to the source.
absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's all the questions that I had on the list
Yeah,
here.
and we're at time, so I will thank everyone for joining us today. Remember that the goal is to support our neurodivergent students while keeping them safe and healthy. And
Yep.
stay tuned for more discussions on creating inclusive educational environments through Alterminds.
Woohoo! Looking forward to it. Thanks for the love, folks. See you soon.
Bye.